Is that how you got to Colorado Springs then?
That is not actually how I got to Colorado Springs. Um, so
Wah,
so
wah, wah.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. Um while I was in the military, I ended up getting a divorce from my ex-wife, and we had three children, three little kids. I guess we still have three little kids, but we have three little kids.
They're grown up
And
now.
they are, yeah, my oldest son just turned 18 a couple weeks ago. So they're pretty big now. But we had three small kids at the time, and we split up, and my ex a couple years later ended up moving out to Cheyenne.
Okay.
And we did the, me fly there, they fly here thing for a couple years, and that really just wasn't working. And at the time, um, my wife and I, we just had a baby too, and so it was a good time to, if we were going to make a change. Plus, it's very expensive in DC in the DC area to live, to get a house of any type, and it's very expensive. So that plus I had a job opportunity out here in Colorado Springs, as a defense contractor, um, and trying to reduce that travel time to see my older three big kids. That all kind of culminated into us moving out in May of 22. I always get the dates confused as to
Right.
when I actually moved out here was in May of 22.
Right. Well, you had so
And
much going on. So you were getting a divorce while you were in the Air Force?
yeah, so we started that process in 2015, and then it finally ended up in 2026. So I was in the whole time. Um, yeah, I was in the Air Force the whole time. And that's part of it too, is right, the decision to um, separate from the military. On one hand, I had started down this path to make a career as a lawyer. And so that's kind of hard to do while you're active duty military. And they tell you where they want you to live most of the
Right.
time. And so while I could control that to a certain extent, it was just much harder for me to stay in that area, and then much harder for me to, once my ex relocated, it was just harder to it's just hard in general to try to get the Air Force to move you where you want to go. Well, there are
Right.
bases out here. There's bases in Cheyenne. There's a base in Cheyenne. It's just hard. You never know.
Plus, while
Um,
you're active duty, you are required to move every so many years
you
in
are.
general.
Yeah, you are. So yeah, there are ways around it
Yeah.
in the DMV area, which is what I took advantage of. I happened to go to I happened to have been stationed with the person that decided where intel officers go. So I talked to her a little bit and was able to and told her my situation at the time, and was able to stay there in the at least the area, right?
Right.
But after that, it's up to the needs of the Air Force. They could send you wherever they wanted to. So that kind of that played in a factor as into me getting out as well.
Got it. So let's go ahead and transition a little bit to after cyberspace and government contracting, uh, deciding to become a lawyer. Obviously, you had
Yeah.
that thought. Now, was it because you went through a divorce and it seemed like it took a little bit of time and that kind of thing? Was that kind of the impetus of
Yeah.
why you wanted to become a lawyer? What was your experience and how did that play into you saying
Yeah.
cyberspace to being a lawyer?
Yeah. No, that played a large role. I up to, obviously I wasn't a lawyer in the military. I didn't, have any, real thought of being a lawyer at all, right? My impression of what lawyers did on a day-to-day basis comes from, My Cousin Vinny and Law and Order and things like that. I had no real idea what an actual lawyer did. So it wasn't really on my radar to do that. But as my, as I got divorced, obviously I retained a lawyer during that process,
Mhm.
and his guidance during that time was invaluable to
Okay.
me. And you as somebody that's going through that, not as much on the, I do estate planning and probate as well, but not as much on the estate planning side, but on the probate side and on the family law side, you're talking to an attorney because something bad has happened.
Right.
And that's most of the time you're encountering people on their worst day or one of their worst days.
Yeah.
And they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. And that's how I was, am I ever going to see my kids again? Am I going to be able to survive just financially? Right? What is that? All of those questions are just running through your head and you have no idea. You
Right.
don't know what's about to happen. And his guidance and advice was just invaluable to me. And then as obviously it's a very emotional event for anybody that time period. And then as that kind of, you know, lessened a little bit, that emotional side, I learned that I liked the legal side of it. I liked that. It was enjoyable to me. It was enjoyable doing the research. It was enjoyable, kind of applying the facts to this to a given situation. So that part was enjoyable to me. So I and so I liked that combination because it appealed to kind of what I did in the military at a more granular, acute level. Um, and I could take that knowledge and help somebody in their darkest moment, right? And that's why I wanted to switch careers. I obviously I loved serving, right? I
Right.
love serving, and the thing that I liked the most about being in the military was helping and leading the airmen that I was entrusted with guiding and leading. That's the part that I liked a lot.
Wow.
And in my, in my experience and what I had done and experience with a divorce, I thought it turned out to be true that switching careers, I could do that. I could apply that knowledge every single day to my clients and apply that, compassion and my kind of story to my clients. And I find that really, really satisfying. And so that's kind of where obviously I didn't know at the time that that was going to be the case,
Right.
because I didn't really know what lawyers did. But I was, having seen what my attorney did in that type of lifestyle, I was like, this is what I think I want to do. So
So you went to
in
law school then.